Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I'll be talking to you about Sword Art Online Alicization Lycoris. Recently there was a developer livestream that showed off some new gameplay for Alicization Lycoris. The gameplay was focusing on a boss battle, and during the fights we got to see how whips and daggers work firsthand, some new UI elements and a few other changes and new things that I don't think have been shown before. So far on these showcase live streams, we've seen gameplay from the developers using characters that use swords, katanas and rapiers, but the focus this time seemed to be on whips and daggers. Whips seem to be mid-range weapons that look like they'll have an easier time hitting multiple enemies at once, because of its wide normal attacks and certain attack skills that seem to cover a lot of ground. I didn't get a chance to use whips myself when I played, and I haven't seen enough gameplay of whips to know for sure, but this is how things seem at the moment from this gameplay. It looked like the whip's attack skills still had enough range to reach the boss even after they use an evade to backflip away from it, which does seem like it will give you an advantage against enemies that have a shorter attack range. If there are any abilities that can lock enemies in place for a few seconds, like a bind, I feel like that's where whips and bows are going to have a huge advantage. Other weapons do seem to have some attack skills that can be used when you have some distance between you and the enemy, but since you need to be up close to build SP to use a weapon's attack skills, it doesn't seem like they'll be as effective at range as whips and bows would be. Well, I say that now, but I'm pretty sure someone's gonna come up with a one-handed sword build that can snipe enemies somehow. I think daggers look like they're going to be fun to use at first glance, but this really isn't the best boss they could have used to showcase dagger gameplay, since the boss keeps jumping around. Based on what they've shown, it seems like daggers have fast attack speed that will help them build more SP, and because it seems like they can build SP faster, that would mean they should be able to use their attack skills more often. During the stream it was shown one of the dagger finishing arts, but it did seem to have a much higher damage than the finishing arts we've seen previously. This could be because it's the first time we've seen gameplay from characters that are level 50, or it could be that dagger skills just deal a lot of damage. Some other things that were shown were what I assume are the tier 3 fire and ice sacred arts. Well, mainly the fire sacred art, since the ice one was barely seen in the corner of the screen, so I have no idea how it functions outside of being an ice spell that seems to stay active for a few seconds. The fire sacred art was a flame tornado that passed directly through enemies in a straight line, so I'd assume this would be a good spell to use when you're fighting against a group of enemies. I have no idea if this hits enemies multiple times as it passes through them, since it was mainly used by the AI characters and not a character the developer was controlling, so I couldn't see things like damage numbers. But I hope it does hit multiple times, since if the tornado inflicts a burn status effect, then more hits would probably mean more chances to set the enemy on fire. The UI has also been cleaned up, so there are less things that are blocking the view of your characters. Things like the sword skill palette and the party tactics window used to appear in the middle of the screen, and at times they could overlap your characters and the view of the enemy. The tactics window seems to have been moved to the bottom left of the screen while the skill palette is open, and the sword skill palette is still there, but it seems like there's more of a delay before it shows up on the screen. So if you know exactly which buttons you have your skills on, you won't even need to look at the skill palette. Having your character blocked by the palette did get a bit annoying while I was playing the older build of the game, so this is definitely a welcome change. Another addition to the UI are clearer ways for you to get additional information about what's happening during a fight. It seems like this feature still needs to be tweaked a bit, since it didn't seem to always be accurate for finishing arts. But the damage you deal with sword skills gets collected, and the total damage dealt with sword skills is displayed separately from the other damage numbers. Since a lot of sword skills are multi-hit, it can be hard to tell how much damage you're dealing with them, but now that they're showing how much damage sword skills are dealing alongside the rest of the damage, it's easier to keep track of your damage if you are someone that likes to make sure your equipment and buff choices are actually making an impact on your sword skills. A new icon was also added that notifies you when your abilities that consume the arts gauge, like finishing arts, are ready, which I think is definitely a needed addition, since that's information you'd want to know about without having to constantly open the arts menu to see if something is ready for use. It also looks like a few of the battle and party features have been streamlined and merged into one. The tactical menu that I showed in the previous video seems to slow down time instead of completely freezing it now. In this mode you can set up chain bursts and select which sword skills your party members use, and it seems like it shows a preview into what the enemy is going to do by default, instead of you having to press an additional button to activate the glimpse into the future. There were a few things in combat that seemed to have some adjustments, like sword skills being able to flow into each other much smoother than before when using Sword Skill Connect. But it does look like there's a strange pause at the end of a few of the sword skill animations when no follow-up sword skills are used. Hopefully that gets adjusted before release, but with all these constant adjustments to the game to make it better, I'm wondering if the game will actually be ready in time for May. There is still a bit of time before the game releases, and I'd expect there's going to be a day one patch that adds more changes based on some of the things they don't manage to get into the game before their cutoff point. But in the end, all I want is for the game to actually be good, and if that means a short delay, then so be it. But hopefully things don't end up that way and they actually manage to get everything ready in time for release. But that's all from me today. Hopefully there'll be some new information for me to share soon, so if you want to catch any of my other Sword Art Online or action RPG videos, then don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, then a like would be appreciated. And if you want to stay up to date with everything I'm doing, then follow me on social media. The links to everywhere you can find me are in the description. I'll be making some new videos very soon, but until I make those videos, I'll see you all later.